Welcome, football fans, to another episode here of my 2025 NFL season preview. This one for the NFC North Division, right here on one of the most electrifying sports entertainment channels on YouTube today. It's Tim Reynolds Show. Now let's go. And guys, we'll get things kicked off in the NFC North with the Green Bay Packers, a team that was able to make a wild card spot last season and make it into the playoffs in a tough NFC North division. That was one of the toughest divisions last year in the NFL. As we see the offensive ranks for the Green Bay Packers last season, they ranked 8th in points per game, they ranked 5th in rushing offense, and were 12th in passing offense. And head coach Matt LaFleur has got to be happy with the development of their franchise quarterback Jordan Love. But how about this rushing attack last year with free agent addition running back Josh Jacobs able to really carry a big workload and get them into a top 5 rushing attack? I expect that to continue heading into this season. Looking at their defensive ranks last year for the Green Bay Packers, where we see last season they ranked 6th in points per game, 7th in rushing defense, and were 13th in passing defense. Now this was definitely a much improved squad from the year before, but they lose a big key piece in that secondary with all-pro cornerback Alexander leaving after they let him go because of a contract dispute. He signed with the Baltimore Ravens, so in free agency, we've seen this Green Bay Packers defense add a key addition during this 2025 NFL offseason, and that was defensive back Nate Hobbs, who comes over from the Las Vegas Raiders and will most certainly help out this secondary for the Green Bay Packers defense. But another key addition was their first round selection that had the fans at the NFL draft in Lambeau losing their minds, because with the first overall pick, they took wide receiver Matthew Golden, the first time the Packers have drafted a wide receiver in the first round for quite some time. Fans loved it, and guys, that 2025 NFL draft pick is my breakout player for the Green Bay Packers heading into the 2025 NFL season. I think Matthew Golden has a chance of being the number 1 wide receiver in this offense for head coach Matt LaFleur and quarterback Jordan Love, who hopefully can take another step in his development. And guys, my impact player for the Packers heading into this season is going to be defensive back Nate Hobbs. I think he's going to make a big difference in that secondary, which was kind of the weak point for this Green Bay Packers defense last season, even though they were a very, very good squad, especially with safety McKinney, who led the league in interceptions last year. So I think Hobbs will definitely improve this secondary for that Green Bay Packers defense. Now, looking at the floor and ceiling predictions for the Green Bay Packers heading into the 2025 NFL season, I think their floor is 7-10. I know that's a bit low, but guys, I think their ceiling is 12-5. I think the Green Bay Packers could be a playoff team this year, but that NFC North division is still going to be tough, especially with all the moves we've seen the Minnesota Vikings make to try to stay as contenders. And also, we've seen a lot of improvements from the Chicago Bears in free agency once again, but we'll have to see if that pays dividends for the Chicago Bears. And you know the Detroit Lions are also going to be very competitive as well. I do think that 7-10, we could see the wheels fall off the wagon, if you will, if this defense does not play up to par. And I'm a little bit worried about Jordan Love, who comes in the season with an injury on his non-throwing hand, but he's been a little bit injury prone over the last few years, so just something to look out for. But my ceiling prediction for them is 12-5. I think they're a legit playoff team this year, the Green Bay Packers, so we'll have to see how they do. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments about the Green Bay Packers and my preview for them, their ceiling and floor predictions. Up next, we got the reigning, defending NFC North Division champion Detroit Lions, who were the number 1 seed last year in the NFC Conference heading into the playoffs. And now we'll have to see how the Detroit Lions are able to do this upcoming season after a historic season last year in 2024. And we'll start off with the offensive rankings for the Detroit Lions from last year. As we see, they ranked 1st in points per game, 6th in rushing offense, and 2nd in passing offense. So a top 5 offense here. Hopefully they'll be able to keep this thing rolling, especially with offensive coordinator Ben Johnson leaving the Detroit Lions to be the new head coach up north in that same division with the Chicago Bears. So that's going to be really interesting how this plays out for the Detroit Lions with a new offensive coordinator. And speaking of new coordinators, they'll have a new defensive coordinator as well, with Aaron Glenn taking the head coaching job for the New York Jets this offseason. And we see the defensive ranks for the Detroit Lions last year. They ranked 7th in points per game. They also ranked 5th in rushing defense, but were 30th, near the bottom of the league in passing defense. And I know a lot of that probably had to do with all the injuries that they had on defense last year, but this is definitely have to be something that Dan Campbell tries to improve upon this upcoming season, because the secondary has been a problem for the Detroit Lions over the last few years. And guys, we see some of the key additions for the Detroit Lions. They were able to sign defensive back DJ Reed from the New York Jets. This standout defensive back could definitely be a guy that helps improve this passing defense for the Detroit Lions. Now, the Lions, being a first place team last year, got a first place schedule this upcoming 2025 NFL season, where they'll have a lot of tough road games where they'll be facing opponents such as the Baltimore Ravens, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Washington Commanders. So we'll have to see how well this Detroit Lions team will play in those hostile environments with this tough road schedule. And guys, my impact player for the Detroit Lions this upcoming season is defensive end Aiden Hutchinson, who led the team in sacks last year despite missing almost half the year due to an injury. Now, he's expected to fully recover and be back for this defense heading into the 2025 NFL season. So he's my big impact player for them, because I think he could put up double-digit sacks this year, which most certainly will help prove that pass rush. And guys, another big breakout star I'm looking out for the Detroit Lions this upcoming season is linebacker Alex Anzalone, the former Florida Gator. I think this guy's already been a playmaker for the Detroit Lions, but I think he's going to be the breakout star this year, because after suffering that injury last year, I think he's looking forward to stepping up his game this year and handling the middle of that defense, that middle linebacker position. And guys, looking at the floor and ceiling predictions here on Tim Reynolds Show for the Detroit Lions, I think that their floor is an 8-9 record. That's right. I don't know if this Detroit Lions team will make it to this floor. I really do believe that they'll reach their ceiling more than likely at 12-5, but this is a tough division. Just like I explained with the Green Bay Packers before, they're going to have a lot of tough division games throughout this season, but I think this Detroit Lions team is looking like one of the best overall teams, especially on paper. When you look at them in the NFC conference, they definitely are up there with the Philadelphia Eagles as the top two contenders in the NFC, and this offense is going to be explosive still, and I really do think it still will be one of the top 5 offenses in the NFL. So for me, I think the ceiling is probably closer to where we'll see the Lions at the end of the season, but hey, we'll have to see what happens if they can definitely avoid the injury bug, unlike what they did last year, because otherwise we could see things spiral out of control for this Detroit Lions team heading into the 2025 NFL season. Now, Lions fans, let me know what you guys think of that preview and my predictions for the floor and ceiling for the Detroit Lions in the comments. And up next, we got the Minnesota Vikings, who surprised a lot of people last year with that stellar defense and the fact that quarterback Sam Darnold was able to lead them to the playoffs. But Darnold moves on to Seattle, and now the Minnesota Vikings will turn to their second-year quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, who they took in last year's NFL draft in the first round to be their starting quarterback heading into the 2025 NFL season. Now we'll look at the offensive rankings for the Minnesota Vikings last year, as they ranked 9th in points per game. They also ranked 19th in rushing offense and ranked 6th in passing offense. So we'll have to see this rushing attack improve a lot to help take the pressure off of the shoulders of quarterback J.J. McCarthy heading into this season. Looking at the defensive rankings last year for the Minnesota Vikings, we see last year they ranked 5th in points per game, 2nd in rushing defense, but were 28th in passing defense. So this secondary has got to improve this upcoming season if the Minnesota Vikings still want to be playoff contenders or contenders in this tough NFC North division. And guys, looking at the key additions for the Minnesota Vikings, they got a couple of really good veteran players in free agency, including defensive tackle Jonathan Allen and offensive lineman Ryan Kelly and Fries, who both come from the Indianapolis Colts. I think these guys are going to improve not only the offensive line, but Allen comes in as my impact player to look out for the Minnesota Vikings this upcoming season, because I think his leadership on defense is going to be a big key to this upcoming season and helping make sure that that rushing defense is on point there in that Minnesota Vikings defensive side. But we'll have to see the secondary get a lot better if they want to be a playoff team again. But guys, my breakout player for the Minnesota Vikings this upcoming year has got to be young quarterback J.J. McCarthy. I really do think this guy needs to take a big step forward for the Minnesota Vikings brass and head coach Kevin O'Connell to be okay with this guy as their starter going forward. Now for my floor and ceiling predictions for the record for the upcoming season for the Minnesota Vikings. I think that their floor is a 7-10 record, while I think their ceiling is an 11-6 record. Now, I do think this Minnesota Vikings defense is going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL this season. season. I have that much trust in their defensive coordinator, but I do think that this offense is going to struggle at times, but we'll have to see how the young quarterback plays, because that's the big question here for the Minnesota Vikings. But I do think that we could see them as a wild card team or a playoff contender by the end of the year in this tough NFC North division. So those are my predictions, floor and ceiling, for the Minnesota Vikings upcoming season. Vikings fans, let me know what you think in the comments. And last up, guys, we got the Chicago Bears, who struggled last season, but did see some development and some promise from their young rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams. But now the Chicago Bears team comes in with a new head coach, Ben Johnson, who was the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. So hopefully Johnson can unlock a lot more potential for the young QB, Caleb Williams, heading into this season. As we look at the offensive rankings last year for the Chicago Bears, they ranked 28th in points per game, 25th in rushing offense, and were 31st, almost dead last in passing offense. So this offense has got to get a lot better if they want to be competitive this upcoming year in the tough NFC North division. But I think new head coach Ben Johnson is going to make sure that this offense is clicking on all cylinders. Now looking at the defensive rankings last year for the Chicago Bears, we see they ranked 13th in points per game, pretty good, but then ranked 28th in rushing defense and ranked 16th in passing defense. So even though the secondary was pretty good, they couldn't stop anybody against the run. So we'll have to see this rushing defense improve dramatically if the Chicago Bears team wants to be competitive in the tough NFC North. So guys, we see key additions for the Chicago Bears. They've had a very interesting offseason as they were able to add all-pro guard Joe Thuney in a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs, and also were able to sign defensive tackle Grady Jarrett that comes from the Atlanta Falcons. And I think both of these guys are definitely going to help improve on that offensive line and that defensive line for the Chicago Bears. And their first round selection tight end Colston Loveland should definitely work himself into this offense and be a very good weapon and outlet for the young quarterback Caleb Williams. Now guys, they do have a tough schedule this upcoming year with road games against the Washington Commanders, the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champs, and the San Francisco 49ers. So a very, very tough schedule for the Chicago Bears, and I think this is going to play into my record prediction as I get into my floor and ceiling prediction for this upcoming year for the Chicago Bears. I think their floor is going to be a 6-11 record, while I think their ceiling this year is 9-8. I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle bus kind of year with the new head coach, and I really do think this offense is going to sputter at first, especially facing a lot of tough defenses this year, even in their own division. So they're going to be in shootouts in a couple of games, and I really do think that we'll have to see a lot of growth from the young quarterback Caleb Williams in order for the Chicago Bears team to be competitive this upcoming year. I do like the pieces on defense for the Chicago Bears, but I don't know how much better they're going to be in that rushing defense, so I have to see that before I believe it. That's why I have their floor as a 6-11 record and their ceiling at a 9-8 record. Now guys, my breakout star this upcoming year for the Chicago Bears, I think, will be wide receiver Roma Dunze, as he sort of gets to being the #1 wide receiver in this offense for Caleb Williams. I think he's going to have a breakout year. And my big impact player, it's not even a player, guys, it's the head coach. I think Ben Johnson is going to have such an impact on this team that he's going to be the reason why this team looks competitive throughout the whole year and will have a chance to make the playoffs, or he's going to be the reason why they turn this thing around. Well, there you have it, guys. There is my 2025 NFL season preview for the NFC North division right here on Tim Reynolds Show. Leave some comments to let me know what you guys thought of this season preview for the NFC North. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback, and don't forget, please, to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'm one of the most electrifying sports entertainment channels on YouTube today. This is Tim Reynolds Show. Now let's go. Peace out, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Make sure you check out my next episode for my NFL division previews for the upcoming 2025 NFL season on my YouTube channel. We'll see you guys. Peace out.